Okay, the big day is finally here. It's irrigation installation day. In this box, I've got manifolds, I've got solenoid valves, I've got sprinklers, I've got fittings, you name it, it's in here. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy. Let's just have a quick look in here now. We'll go through some of the components that I'm using today to get this system working just right. Starting with our irrigation controller. So I've opted to go with a Hunter Pro HC controller. A lot of you guys will be aware of this controller. It's kind of a bit of a staple go-to when it comes to irrigation systems here in Australia. Has a lot of cool features and a lot of compatibility. Marrying that together with a rain sensor. So this little gadget here will actually mount up on the gutter and plug in to the controller here. And we can set this little hurdy-gurdy here at the desired amount of rain before this system will disable itself. Now, that's a really important water-saving feature because we don't want to use more water than we have to use maintaining our lawns. When it comes to our sprinkler choice, I've sort of designed this system around somebody that might be looking to do this in an area that has maybe a little bit less water pressure than what I have here, because I do have really strong pressure. So I'm going with the Hunter Pro Spray bodies. Now they're the pressure regulating version. You can identify those with this grey cap at 40 PSI. And then connecting to those, we're going to use the ever popular MP rotator nozzles to give us our even coverage and our matched precipitation. In other words, if it's spraying a quarter of a turn, half a turn, or even a full circle, these have been engineered and designed to put out the correct amount of water so everything's getting exactly what you think it's getting. Coming off all of our valves, although we're only using one of the valves today, I've got a couple of these manifolds which I'll join together. So basically what will happen here, these are our solenoid controller valve. So in other words, this is what connects to our irrigation controller and tells via this cable, tells the system when to let water through to these sprinklers. So they will all mount along here. We're going to actually connect them all up today, although there's only going to be one active zone. But once the front yard gets completed, there'll be no requirement for us to dig out and dig up these valve boxes again. So all of that there will live inside one of these boxes. In fact, for this system, I've got 3. So without further ado, let's start doing stuff. Okay, so I've already gone and prepared the area that I'm going to put our valves in. So basically we've got our main line here, which comes from the town water supply and it travels into the house. So if you've seen the last episodes, we've connected in here, we've sent this up to our backyard taps. This one here is going to supply our irrigation system. Now, what I think I'm actually going to do is, because I want to keep these valve boxes a little bit closer to the concrete here, first thing I'm going to do is actually move this connector a little bit further along. So we'll shut the water off, we'll do that, and that way, when I put these in, they're not going to be sort of way over here. I can have them a little bit neater and a little bit closer to the concrete. Now, this will all make sense in a moment, but basically the first one will be our emergency shut-off valve and our backflow prevention. So we need to have a backflow prevention here. So if further down the street or something ever happens and a pipe breaks further down the street, we're not drawing potentially contaminated or dirty water through an irrigation system back and putting into the town supply. So very important to have a backflow prevention valve. So we'll go shut-off valve, backflow valve, master controller valve, then we'll run our irrigation zones from these 2 boxes. So let's get going. And always remember to turn off the water before you start playing around with anything to do with the plumbing. Now, also make sure there's no one in the shower because that could be a bit of a shock. And we'll drain the pressure out. So I seem to be getting really good at forgetting to hit the record button. So I need to improve on that. But basically, all I've done is remove that section of piping, no big deal. And I'm swapping out this threaded T-piece for just a normal 3-pipe T-piece. The technical term escapes me, but you get my point. So all we need to do in this case is, I've got a little offcut here. So to move it along, all we need to do basically is, well, there's our start point. The pipe's gonna reach that there. So it's gonna go through, and we're just gonna cut a little bit more of this pipe out, which in turn will reposition this fitting to a more suitable location. So I will actually measure this out and get it as close as possible to get these in the right spot. What we'll do now is, before we cut this, because once we cut this, we're sort of stuffed. So we need to make sure we get that right, because if we start cutting in here, then I've got to get joiners and move it back, and it gets costly, and it's just a hassle we don't need. So it's going to test fit this here. Hang on, something's not right. There we go. Now we'll just pretend that that's there for a moment. I reckon that's probably about right. I'm pretty happy with that. Gives us a little bit of space around the valve boxes. I don't really want to push them right up there, because it is a bit of a pain having that little tiny gap. So I'll put it there. So what we need now is a little bit more blue stripe. I've got some more offcuts up the back. We'll send it down this way. We'll put our tap, our ball valve in, and then we can turn this system back on and shut it off from this side. Righto, so I've got my little bit of extra offcut here. So we'll install that and then trim it to size once we know where the box is going. So I'm just doing a little bit of a test at the moment before I actually put some thread tape and this messy looking stag stuff again. Just want to make sure I get everything lined up as good as I can. This here is our backflow prevention valve. So basically there is a correct way. So water this way. So basically we've got to follow the arrow. So water in. If we do it the other way, it's not going to push any water through. It's going to do the reverse. So make sure it's that way in our system. And we can mount it just here for a moment, just for a test sake. So this is going to be basically what's in our first valve. So we're going to come off our striped pipe here. And the first thing we can do is we've got a shut-off valve. So if anything ever goes wrong with this valve or anything further along the system, we just close this off here. That way we can keep water going to the house and to the backyard. We don't have to shut off mains or anything if there's ever a drama. This here shuts off the irrigation system. Probably the best way to do it. So going forward, we never have to shut the water off at the house again if we are just operating on anything after this here. So that should fit in nicely in a box, which it does. And from there, we feed into our bank of valves. So starting with our thread tape, same as last time, starting on the top of the fitting, bringing it to, it's always easier when you don't have to explain it. Starting at the top, thread tape at the bottom of the roll, and we're going around the bottom. Just hold your finger there a little bit till it grabs. And then once it's done that, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're actually keeping a little bit of tension on this now. As you can see, it's sort of molding into the thread. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like so. Still don't think I use this stuff fully correctly, but such is life. Righto, where's those multi-grip Stilsons? Righto. Righto, so there we have it. I have a feeling I might have had those around the other way, but in my opinion, it doesn't really make any difference at all. I've kept it on this side of the shutoff valve. Reason being is we eliminate any potential underground leaks. So really, if there's going to be any leaks further down the track, which there shouldn't be, it really can only leak from there in a way that can be a problem. If anything happened to leak further along, between here and here, we can shut this off until we can get to it. And of course, anything after here, unless there's water flow, it'll never be open. So that's why I've put it all this side of that valve. You might want to do it a different way. There might be a more professional way. That's how I'm choosing to do it. And of course, make sure you got that in the right way. Flow this way. And same as our valve, flow, arrow, water through that way. So let's just plug this in here now. Technically, I should turn this on now and not have anything leaking through there. So we'll check that and we'll move on. Got our water back on now. And at this stage, everything looks pretty good. Okay, next step now is to obviously put this first valve box around it. Now, I prefer to use what they call these rectangular squat valve boxes. So they're about half the depth of a traditional rectangle valve box. Now, a couple of reasons. I don't need to dig super deep here. What I will do though, is I will sit them on a couple of bricks to give this a little bit of space. Now, you could obviously also just dig a little V around the pipe, or in this case, this structure here, but in my case, I'm just going to sit it on a couple of bricks. I've dug down to the point that it's the brick height that marries up to the edge of the concrete path there, and that should be quite sufficient. So it'll be somewhere there, a couple of bricks, which I'll get a level in a minute, but sit something like that, you get the idea. So let's just get that honed in and we'll be good to move on to our manifold section. What I might actually have to do in this situation, because we're coming straight off that PVC pipe, it's taking away my ability to get that any lower. So I'm going to take this valve box, I'm just going to get an angle grinder and just trim a little bit here to create a bit of a lip. As it sort of continues down past that point, it's getting back to the ground level, and that'll be fine. So I'm just going to trim this section here, take a little bite out of it, and that'll help it sit much nicer. Well, we might not actually need the bricks there. It is a little bit low, but I can pack it up with a bit of this this gravel, and I think that's going to be pretty good. I might just trim a little bit of this side here. I don't know whether I'll need to do it or not, but let's just do it. I've actually made a last minute change. Instead of using leftover house bricks, I've just zipped down to the Landscape Supply Centre in town and just grabbed a few of these retaining wall caps, the Besta block caps, if you will. They should sit a lot nicer when it comes to getting these on a nice level, solid foundation, and just leaving a little bit of gravel. I'll put a little bit of gravel under the whole system just for a bit of neatness. So let's now join our solenoid manifold kit onto this, run some valves, and then from here on in, we'll zip out the back and we'll start putting in some sprinklers. Onto our manifold now. So basically this just gives us the ability to branch out different zones. So let's just say this is the backyard, the side yard, the front yard, the nature strip, whatever you want to call it. So each one of these will become a zone on the controller. Now, Luckily enough for us, all of these have O-rings inside of them, so we don't need to use any thread tape. All we need to do is do these up. These are really easy, watertight, and from here we mount our valves. Until I get a power point here behind me, and I'll show you in a minute, until I get a power point there and I know exactly where the valve box is going, I'm not going to wire these up today. As you can see, there's a conduit here that runs through there, and we'll conduit around and we'll get the length cut right once our irrigation controller is mounted on the wall. So we can still operate this system manually. That's the benefit of these valves. So the computer is nice to have, and going forward we will use it probably in the next episode. But for the moment, we're going to operate this as a manual system. So we've got all our valves in place. We've got all our connectors on the end. So basically from here on in, today we're only connecting up one. The rest will actually sort of semi-be connected. We'll run some pipes under the driveway and just terminate them on the other side. So once all of this is in the ground, we don't need to dig this up a second time. So I've made a little alteration to these valve boxes just so these fit nicely. So they all fit there now as they should. And then I can get them all the same distance off the path, etc. So from here on in, we'll connect this pipe up. We'll probably make this one the first valve box here. We'll connect that pipe up there, and we'll do some others and poke them through under the drive. As much as we can do out here today. Let's move on now around to the backyard. We'll start installing the sprinklers and we'll set them up. It is a bit breezy, but we'll be able to rough them in and get them going and see how they look. With as much as we can do at the front now, it's actually really nice to move away from the breeze, come out here to the backyard and start installing our sprinklers. So as you've seen in the past video, everything's ready to go. All I've got to do basically now is install the swing arms or the articulated risers in all of the spots. Once we've done that, we should actually give the system a little bit of a flush. Now, I happen to know that there's absolutely nothing in those lines, but if you're not so sure, always good to give them a bit of a flush. Then stick your nozzles into the sprinklers, which are our MP rotators. They are the MP 2000s. And I think it's 11 millimeters of irrigation per hour. So 1 hour of irrigation puts down 11 millimeters. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we are using the Hunter Pro spray bodies, and these are the PRS 40s. So they're regulated pressure, equalized out if you will, to 40 PSI. So 40 PSI, according to all the stats in the literature, is the ideal operating pressure for these heads. Now, I'm on a fairly good wicket here when it comes to flow and pressure. So we'll probably even have to wind back our controller valve just a little tiny bit, but these will also cancel out any oversupply of pressure or water. So with these risers, all we basically do is we've got an elbow at one end and a double elbow at the other. So the double elbow is the bit that the sprinkler goes onto, like so. And then when it comes to stick it in the ground, we've now got, so let's just assume for a moment this is the pipe here. We've got the ability to adjust this sprinkler to the perfect height. So the other benefit of these is if someone walks or steps on them, or something happens to, like a mower drives over them, it does give them a little bit of give. It doesn't just straight away have nowhere to go and damage the base of the sprinkler or do anything like that. So it really is just now a matter of screwing these in. Once they're all in, we'll flush the system and we'll stick our nozzles in. When it comes to thread tape and these articulated risers, even the sprinkler, these are actually self-sealing and don't actually require any sort of thread tape or any of this stag, etc. However, I probably recommend just putting a little bit around any adapters that you've got that go into these fittings here. Other than that, you're good to go. I'm going to flush the system just with the risers, so they will, I guess, fill up and puddle a little bit, but I'd rather do that than clog up the new nozzle. So let's turn this on and see if it works. I hope it does. Righto, we have liftoff. Nothing there yet. Starting to come through there. There. These will take the path of least resistance at this stage, hence that one there flowing quite well. Looks pretty clear. That one there. That one there. That one there. So theoretically, if I cover that, we should get a little bit more flow up there, which we do. So let's shut this off and plug in our sprinklers. As we enter into day 2 of our irrigation install, yesterday afternoon, the camera went flat. It was getting towards the end of the day, so I just decided to call it a day. So this morning, just before we put our nozzles in, we'll just have a look around here. So we've got our sprinklers. This one here, I'm gonna probably, I think I said yesterday, I'm gonna try and extend that just to get it a little bit further into the corner. All the others, apart from that one, are pretty good. We're just going to do a little bit of adjustment here. As you can see, it's pushed up hard against the edge of the concrete here, and edging in the future will be a bit of an issue. So we'll get to that in a moment. All the others though are pretty good. We've got, you know, a couple of fingers there that will fit there. That's pretty cool. That one there's probably about as close as you want, but there's some scope there just to pack it with sand and just move it back a bit. So that's not so bad. That one down there won't be a concern. Same as that one, or that one. Again, these ones here, these are going to sit off the edge just a little bit, basically because of this concrete splatter. So we're pretty close. There's actually quite a bit of pressure there pushing that sprinkler against the pathway. So what I think I'll do is, I think I should just be able to just slightly tilt this fitting up a bit, which should bring this away and then tilt it back level. If that doesn't work, we'll dig a little bit more around here and move the pipe back. But it is a bit gluggy from our little tests yesterday and clearing out the any stuff in the pipe. So hence the gloves. So criticise me all you will in the comments. In the start of this video, I've chosen to go with the MP rotators by Hunter. Now, these are a really good choice, particularly in modern housing estates where water pressure isn't quite as good as what we've got here. It does enable you to have quite a few sprinklers on one line without having 100 different zones. Now, these are all what they call matched precipitation. In other words, whether you have it set to 1/3, 1/4, or 360 degrees, these have been designed that each sprinkler is putting out the same amount of water as one that's doing more coverage. So in the case of these are the 2000s. These will cover a distance of 4 to 6.4 meters, which you can adjust the distance with this tool. And the other thing is these put out, I got it wrong yesterday, these are actually 10 millimeters an hour. So 1 hour of irrigation gives you 10 mils on the ground. So that's really good when you're putting in fertilizers and stuff. So fertilizer is normally 6 mils, so run your sprinklers for half an hour, thereabouts. A couple of little limitations with these sprinklers that I've noticed. You've got to have potentially 3 different style nozzles to cover a whole area. So you've got these ones here which are in the bag, which do from 1/4 all the way around to 210 degree, and then from 210 nearly to 360, and then if you have a full circle one, it's a separate nozzle again. So that's one of the limitations that these have got, but other than that, these look really impressive when they're operating too. They're easy to adjust, and they do a really good job. So let's throw these in, turn it on, and have a look. So you may have noticed that the last one I just put in, or the first one I put in, had a green top on it. So that indicates that it does a different radius. So that one there was the 210 round to nearly 360. These ones go from a 90-degree right angle all the way around to 210 degrees. So all the rest of these here will be black, but that was the only one there that was going to actually be a different color. So we've got all the nozzles installed now. I'll go and turn it on, and then we'll fine tune them and get them positioned just right. So you guys are going to actually see this pop up before I do, because I'll be out the front. As I said, once the irrigation system gets connected with a bit of power, then we'll be able to control this whole thing from our phone anywhere around the world. Hey, look at that. Righto, we have liftoff. Well, that wasn't too bad a first run. I didn't actually take you guys up close and adjust sprinklers. Reason being, at the moment, all this mud here, it's ultra sticky. So what I think I'm going to do is, when the turf goes down, when the irrigation controller goes in, we'll spend a bit of time and we'll adjust sprinklers and show you how it is up close. But at the moment, the more I walk in that, the more I'm just carrying it all over the concrete. So sprinklers are in. Sand is arriving in a little while. I've got 30 something tonne of sand coming today. That won't all be required here. Some of that will head out the front as well. But basically, we're one step closer now to getting our Sir Grain zoysia down. So we'll wrap the video up here. Plenty more to come when it comes to irrigation. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you have enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, helps the channel grow. We'll catch you next time on the Aussie Lawn.